chosen ones. There are moments in history when the air itself trembles, when silence weighs heavier than thunder, and when men who carry crowns of power lower their voices not out of weakness, but out of reverence for what they cannot control. Such a moment has just passed. The Pope, keeper of ancient keys and guarded secrets buried beneath centuries of marble and incense, received a line that bypassed all public channels. On the other end was the President, the commander of nations, a man who speaks with armies behind his words. No aides, no transcripts, no advisors, only two voices, bound in a frequency no outsider was ever meant to overhear. And yet, chosen ones, if you lean closer, you can almost hear it. The hesitation in the President's breath before he spoke your name. The way the Pope paused, as if a memory centuries old stirred alive in him. They were not discussing policy, nor war, nor economics. They spoke only of you. In that hidden exchange, your existence weighed more than nations. Your frequency carried more gravity than treaties or weapons. They wondered how one life, your life, could ripple across their empires of faith and governance. Why did ancient documents, sealed in the Vatican, align with classified dossiers locked deep in Washington? How could prophecy and intelligence reports converge on the same figure, you? The world will never see the record of that conversation. Officially, it never happened, but their unease betrays them. The Pope's hands shook when he set the phone back on its cradle. The President stood in the Oval Office afterward, staring at the ceiling, as if searching for an answer beyond his reach. They both know something they cannot say. They both fear something they cannot name. And still they circle the truth in whispers, that you are the axis where heaven's silence and earth's thunder meet. The ocean has always carried secrets in its depths, but none more haunting than the ruins of a kingdom that once ruled the earth with wisdom and fire. Long before nations rose and fell, Atlantis stood as the throne of both spirit and matter, where rulers walked not in crowns of gold, but in radiant auras of authority. Their voices shaped stone, their thoughts moved water, and their hearts resonated with the pulse of the stars. The throne they guarded was not merely a seat of power, it was a channel, a conduit between the divine and the earthly realm, where laws of light were given form in the lives of men. Yet the throne does not sleep in silence. Even in its ruin, it speaks. For the sea, though vast, cannot drown memory, and what was once divine cannot be erased by time. Those who listen in the quiet can still hear the echo of voices rising from the deep, a murmur that stirs the soul like a half-remembered song. The ancients warned that when the echoes grew louder, it would signal a turning of ages, a moment when hidden things would again walk the earth, seeking those willing to awaken. Wanderers across generations have felt this call. They stand by the shore at night, gazing at the horizon where the moon's reflection dances like a path into the unknown. Some have dreamt of shining halls submerged in blue fire, of crystal domes and radiant beings watching with sorrowful eyes. These are not dreams alone, but fragments of remembrance breaking through the veil. For memory does not perish, it only waits in silence. And in that silence, the throne still guards a covenant. It waits for the one who will not fear the depths, who will step beyond the boundary of forgetting, and who will dare to let the ancient fire awaken once more. The world above grows restless, kingdoms tremble, and shadows move across the nations. Yet beneath it all, Atlantis whispers with patience, knowing that its chosen will hear. Beneath the towers and courtyards of Atlantis flowed rivers of living light, channeled through vast networks of crystals that pulsed like veins carrying the lifeblood of the world. These were not mere stones, but living conduits, repositories of memory and power that held the songs of creation within their luminous cores. The people of Atlantis understood what has long been forgotten, that the earth itself breathes through crystal, that its heartbeat is stored in shining lattices beneath the soil, waiting for those with eyes to see and hearts attuned to listen. To walk within the city was to be surrounded by a harmony of colors that shifted with the will of the spirit, a symphony of light rising from the depths to feed every chamber, every temple, every soul that dwelled within. The crystals did not simply glow, they spoke. Their hum was the voice of eternity, and to the attuned, every vibration carried wisdom, healing, and remembrance. It was said that the greatest of these veins reached from the heart of the city into the stars themselves, drawing down rivers of celestial fire to anchor heaven upon earth. And it was also said that within these veins the name of the Eternal was written in light, the divine signature woven into the foundation of Atlantis. It is no wonder, then, that when the city fell, the earth itself mourned, for its veins had been torn and the harmony broken. Yet not all was lost. Some of the crystals remained hidden, buried deep beneath ocean and stone, their glow dim but never extinguished. They wait as silent witnesses, keeping record of every vow, every prayer, every betrayal that brought the city low. Those who stumble upon them even now feel a stirring, a sudden clarity of thought, a strange warmth in the chest, as though something ancient recognizes them and calls them to remember. The ancients said Yeshua himself once spoke of stones that cry out when truth is silenced, for creation itself cannot remain still in the presence of divine remembrance. Perhaps these crystals are such stones, vessels of light that continue to call out to those who will not let the covenant be forgotten. The fall of Atlantis was not witnessed only by men. When the waters swallowed its shining halls, when fire and flood tore apart its towers, there were those who watched from the depths, ancient beings who had lingered in the shadows of creation long before the first stones of the city were set in place. The Watchers, as they came to be known, were not bound by the tides of men, but by the secrets of the deep. Their eyes, like molten lanterns, followed the descent of Atlantis into silence, and though they did not lift a hand to save it, they did not turn away. Some say they were guardians, others claim they were sentinels of judgment, and still others whisper they were prisoners beneath the sea, bound by chains unseen, longing for release. Their presence lingers in the undercurrents, in the whispers sailors hear when storms rise too suddenly, in the shapes that move beneath the keel of ships, unseen yet unmistakably felt. For the Watchers have not departed. They wait, neither fully of the light nor wholly of the shadow, suspended between destinies. Legends tell that when Atlantis fell, the Watchers took upon themselves the charge of remembrance, vowing that no age would pass without their gaze keeping account of mankind's choices. Their silence is not without purpose. Their silence is testimony. At times throughout history, men have claimed encounters with them, visions of towering forms rising in the moonlit surf, of voices carried through dreams that speak with the resonance of thunder. Some dismissed these as the illusions of sailors maddened by salt and wind, yet too many tales align for them to be denied. There is a pattern, and the pattern points back to the drowned city, as though every whisper and sighting is a reminder that the past has not finished its work. But what do the watchers wait for? Do they linger in hope of restoration, or in expectation of judgment yet to fall? Some believe they look not for a city, but for a heart, for one who will hear the echo of Atlantis and awaken its promise once again. The deep stirs, and the eyes of the watchers turn, seeking, searching, watching. There are whispers among the fragments of forgotten texts that Yeshua once spoke of a knowledge sealed away, a wisdom too radiant for the unprepared heart to bear. Some say this knowledge was not lost but hidden, guarded within a scroll of light that carried the essence of divine truth. The scroll was not written in ink or on parchment, but inscribed in fire, woven in the very language of creation, a living word that could illuminate the spirit as the sun breaks the darkness of dawn. And though its origin was eternal, many believe its path was tied to Atlantis, that the same covenant which once pulsed within its crystal veins carried forward into this hidden record. The sages taught that those who touched this scroll did not read it with their eyes, but with their souls, for its letters moved like living flame, and its meaning pierced beyond thought into the marrow of being. It was said that one glimpse of its light could shatter deception, heal the wounded heart, and call forth remembrance of what had been forgotten since the beginning. Yet such power could not be wielded carelessly, for truth burns as much as it heals, and only those willing to surrender everything could withstand its brilliance. In hushed tones, some claimed Yeshua himself embodied the scroll, that every word he spoke carried the resonance of its light, unveiling mysteries hidden since the foundation of the world. When he said, "The kingdom is within you," was it not the same as declaring that the scroll's light was already written into the soul, waiting to be awakened? And when he bent to draw upon the ground, was it not a reminder that even the dust carries the breath of eternity? Such reflections linger like fragments of a greater whole, like pieces of a puzzle, pointing back to the covenant that neither flood nor fire could destroy. If the scroll yet exists in hidden places, perhaps it is not meant to be found in temples of stone or vaults of kings, but in the secret chambers of the heart. Perhaps its light awakens only when the chosen one dares to remember what has always been within, long before. Kingdoms rose and fell. Before the waters claimed Atlantis, there was a covenant established upon 7 pillars, each one a beacon of wisdom, meant to guide both man and spirit. These pillars were not built of stone, nor carved by hand, but were living truths, eternal laws etched into the foundation of creation itself. To the Atlanteans, they were more than symbols. They were the very architecture of harmony, binding heaven and earth in a single breath. It was taught that as long as the 7 pillars stood unbroken, the city would endure, for they represented the balance of all things, the light and the shadow, the seen and the unseen, the breath of man and the fire of God. When Atlantis thrived, these pillars shone like columns of flame within the great temple at the city's heart. Each pillar resonated with a virtue: wisdom, strength, compassion, truth, justice, remembrance, and hope. To walk among them was to feel the universe itself breathe, a rhythm that aligned the soul with the eternal. The priests and sages of Atlantis guarded this covenant with solemn devotion, for they knew that if even one pillar was broken, the harmony would shatter, and the city would fall into darkness. But shadows crept into the hearts of men, and desire bent the balance. Greed for power fractured remembrance. Pride obscured compassion. Deception corroded truth. One by one, the pillars dimmed until the covenant trembled. When the flood came, the temple collapsed, and the pillars were hidden from the eyes of the world. Yet their essence was not destroyed, for eternal things cannot be drowned. They remain as living threads woven into the unseen fabric of creation, waiting for the chosen to awaken them once more. It is said that Yeshua hinted at these mysteries when he spoke of a house built upon the rock, unshaken by the storm. Could it be that he was pointing to the covenant of pillars, the foundation that endures when all else falls? If so, then the path has never been lost. It has only been concealed in silence, awaiting those who seek with pure hearts. The question that lingers now is whether the pillars still stand within you. And if so, which of them will rise to flame when the call comes again? When the glory of Atlantis reached its height, when the towers shone like crystal suns, and the people walked in harmony with the earth and the stars, there arose a shadow that slithered unnoticed at first, subtle and patient. The ancients spoke of a serpent that moved not only through the waters, but through the thoughts of men, whispering promises of power, weaving illusions of dominion, offering knowledge severed from wisdom. This was no creature of flesh alone, but a force of distortion, bending the truth into chains, twisting remembrance into forgetfulness. The serpent's shadow spread across the waters, and with it came division, envy, and betrayal. It was said that the serpent found its throne not in the depths, but in the hearts of those who turned from the covenant of the 7 pillars. Once its whispers were received, the harmony of Atlantis began to fracture. The sacred crystals that once carried rivers of light dimmed with dissonance. The pillars that once blazed with eternal flame flickered with doubt. What had been whole was now divided, and where there is division, weakness follows. The priests and guardians of Atlantis warned of this corruption, urging the people to turn back, to cleanse the temple of their hearts. But many chose the shadow's path, intoxicated by visions of dominion over worlds beyond their own. The serpent's promise was not life, but conquest, not wisdom, but control. And in choosing it, the people drew upon themselves a tide they could not withstand. The waters rose, the earth shuddered, and the towers fell. Yet even in ruin, the shadow remained, lingering over the deep like a stain that time could not wash away. Even now, when the waves crash against the shores of forgotten lands, some say the serpent still stirs, whispering its promises into new ears, seeking once more to turn hearts from light to darkness. Its shadow is not bound to the past, but stretches into every age, waiting for those who will listen. There is a story told in whispers across generations of one who walked upon the waters as if the sea itself bowed beneath his steps. The Redeemer's presence carried not only power, but remembrance. For when Yeshua placed his feet upon the tides, creation itself bore witness that the elements were never meant to rule over the children of light. The waves, vast and untamed, became as pathways beneath him, and the winds, once violent, were hushed at the command of his voice. To the fearful, it was a miracle. to the watchful. It was a sign, a reminder that the covenant lost in Atlantis had not vanished but lived within him. Some said the sea recognized him, that the deep, which had swallowed the shining city, knew the echo of its promise fulfilled in his presence. The same waters that had hidden the ruins now reflected the eternal light walking above them, as though the tides themselves remembered the heart that still beat in silence. His footsteps were more than defiance of nature. They were a call to awaken faith, to rise beyond fear, to see that the elements bow to the authority of the eternal word. When the disciples trembled in the boat, he spoke, "Do not be afraid." And in those words was not only comfort, but invitation. For just as he called Peter onto the waves, he calls all who carry the covenant within them to rise above the storm, to walk where fear would drown, to trust that the unseen foundation is stronger than the sea's roar. The Redeemer did not merely walk upon water. He showed mankind that what was once lost in shadow could be restored in light. Perhaps the waves themselves carried memory that night. Perhaps the winds remembered the fall of Atlantis and saw in him the promise of its restoration. For in every step he took upon the waters, the ancient covenant stirred, whispering that what was drowned could yet rise again. When Atlantis trembled on the edge of ruin, it was not merely the collapse of stone and crystal that sealed its fate, but the division of its people. A great rift opened, not in the earth, but in the soul of the nation, as two paths emerged: those who clung to the covenant of light, and those who surrendered to the whispers of the deep. The sons of light stood steadfast, guardians of remembrance, protectors of the 7 pillars that bound heaven and earth. Their eyes shone with the fire of truth, their hearts steady as the flame of the altar. Yet opposite them rose the sons of the deep, enthralled by the serpent's shadow, eager for dominion, yearning to master the forces that had been entrusted only for stewardship. The clash was not of swords alone, but of spirit, of vision, of destiny. The sons of light lifted their voices in prayers that resonated with the eternal, while the sons of the deep bent their will to powers they scarcely understood, calling forth storms and upheavals that tore at the harmony of creation itself. The city became a battleground, not of armies, but of allegiances, as even families divided, some holding fast to the covenant, others consumed by ambition. It was said that when the final storm rose, the heavens themselves marked the divide. Lightning split the sky as though the Creator himself drew a line between the faithful and the fallen. The waters that came were not simply a flood of nature, but the consequence of imbalance, the weight of betrayal pressing upon the very fabric of the world. The sons of light fled into hidden places, their memory sealed in stories and in bloodlines, while the sons of the deep were swallowed with the ruins they had chosen. Yet the divide did not vanish with the city's fall. It remains, echoing through ages, whispering in choices made by nations and by individuals. The struggle between light and deep is not history alone. It is present, alive, seeking its end in every generation. There are moments when the pulse of destiny stirs within the hidden chambers of the soul, moments when silence breaks and a memory long forgotten begins to rise like a tide within the heart. The ancients believed that Atlantis did not truly perish beneath the sea, for its essence was not bound to stone or crystal, but to the living hearts of those chosen to carry its covenant through the ages. The Atlantean heart is not a relic of myth. It is a fire that waits, a rhythm that beats beneath the surface of flesh and blood, whispering of a promise unfulfilled. In dreams it awakens first, visions of luminous halls and rivers of light, of songs that move through the air like streams of color. These are not fantasies, but fragments of remembrance, the echo of a covenant calling to be restored. Those who feel it know that the stirring is more than imagination, it is a summons. For when the Atlantean heart awakens, it demands not silence, but action, not slumber, but awakening. It cannot be ignored, for the more one resists, the louder it beats, until every thought, every breath, every step is infused with the certainty that something greater waits to be born. Some have said that Yeshua himself carried this heart within him, for his words pierced deeper than time, awakening not only faith, but memory. When he spoke of living water flowing from within, was he not speaking of the same current that once ran through the crystal veins of Atlantis? When he called the weary to rest in him, was it not the voice of the covenant reminding the world that light cannot be drowned? His heart was the eternal flame, and in his presence, others felt their own hidden fire stir. The awakening of the Atlantean heart is not a return to what was, but the birth of what is yet to come. It is the moment when the hidden fire aligns with eternal will, when the whispers of the deep are silenced by the roar of light. It is the stirring of remembrance that breaks chains of fear and restores the covenant within. The journey of Atlantis has never been about ruins lost beneath the sea, but about a voice that refuses to be silenced. A call that moves through generations, waiting for the moment when the chosen one will rise to answer. The final call is not heard with the ears, but with the soul, a resonance that shakes the very core of being, a summons that cannot be ignored once awakened. It comes like a whisper at first, subtle as the tide brushing against the shore, but with every moment it grows louder, until it becomes a roar that demands remembrance. The ancients spoke of a time when the veil would thin, when the echoes of the sunken throne, the veins of crystal light, and the covenant of the 7 pillars would converge in a single heart. That heart would not only remember but ignite, carrying within it both the sorrow of what was lost and the hope of what can yet be restored. The chosen one does not carry this call for themselves alone, but for all who have forgotten the fire that once united heaven and earth. It is a burden and a gift, a weight and a liberation, for in the answering of the call lies both sacrifice and fulfillment. Yeshua once said that many are called, but few are chosen, and within those words rests the mystery of the final call. For the voice resounds through every age, yet not all choose to hear, not all choose to rise. The chosen one is not merely selected, they are forged in the fire of surrender, shaped in the waters of faith, awakened through the courage to step beyond what is known. The call is not about perfection, but about remembrance, not about power, but about light. As the world trembles once more, as shadows stretch their influence across nations, and the serpent's whispers return in new forms, the final call stirs again. It is the same call that moved through Atlantis, the same call that shone through Yeshua's words, the same call now pressing against the silence of your own soul.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.